They thought he was just an animal, a showpiece for applause, a slave to tricks. But they didn't know. Every wound, every lash, every scream of the crowd carved itself into his memory. He wasn't just an orca. He was Kale, and Kale never forgets. And when they took the only person he ever loved, Jessica, he decided the ocean would run red. The first time Jessica laid eyes on the young orca, he was barely the size of a small boat. His slick black and white skin glistened under the stadium lights of Ocean World Marine Park, and his eyes, huge, round, and startlingly human, locked on hers with an intensity that made her catch her breath. He had been brought in from the wild just weeks ago, torn from his pod. The trainers had given him a clinical name, Specimen OW-17, but Jessica refused to call him that. To her, he was Kale. Jessica wasn't just another trainer. While most of her colleagues followed strict routines, whistling commands and tossing fish like coins to an animal in a slot machine, Jessica crouched at the edge of the pool and spoke to Kale. Not in words he could understand, but in presence, in patience, in something unspoken. The orca swam close to her, hovering just beneath the surface, his eye fixed on her face. He seemed to be listening. "You're not a showpiece," Jessica whispered one night when the stadium was empty. "You're not property. You're family." From that day, Kale followed her everywhere. When she walked along the side of the tank, he shadowed her like a loyal child. When she laughed, splashing her hand into the water, he answered with a massive leap, drenching her in a tidal wave. But Jessica also saw the pain. The way Kale's skin bore raw rake marks from being bullied by older captive males. The way he pressed his head against the pool wall, scraping at the concrete as though trying to escape. Every night she went home with her heart heavy, but every morning she came back, because Kale needed her. Years passed. Jessica stopped being just his trainer. She became his mother, sister, protector, and only friend. Kale, in turn, was no longer the frightened calf pulled from the ocean. He grew into a 10,000-pound predator, but whenever Jessica entered the pool, his movements softened. His enormous body curled gently around her, careful never to hurt her. Spectators gasped during shows when Jessica would dive into the water, vanishing into the dark blue abyss, only for Kale to surge upward moments later, carrying her on his nose like a child balancing his mother. To the crowd, it was magic. To Jessica, it was trust. And yet, deep inside her, Jessica feared something, that the world outside this bond didn't care. To the corporation, Kale was worth millions in ticket sales. To them, Jessica was just another trainer. But to each other, they were everything. The stadium was packed. Thousands of tourists filled the seats, ice cream melting in their hands, cameras flashing as the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Ocean World Spectacular, featuring our star performer, Kale, the killer whale." Jessica stood at the edge of the pool, her whistle in hand, but her heart wasn't in the show. She had argued with management all morning. Kale had been restless. His dorsal fin, once proud and tall, now drooped to the side, a visible sign of captivity. His skin showed new scars from fights with other frustrated whales. He needed rest, healing, not another exhausting performance. But the park's director, Mr. Langston, didn't care. "Tickets are sold out, Jessica. People came to see a whale, not a nap. Do your job." So Jessica forced a smile, though her chest burned with anger. She gave the cue, and Kale obeyed, leaping high, crashing back into the water with an explosion that drenched the front rows. The crowd cheered, blind to the misery behind the spectacle. But Kale wasn't blind. When Jessica tossed him a fish, his eye lingered on her, questioning, almost accusing. It was as if he knew she didn't want to be part of this either. That night, after the stadium lights went dark and the crowds went home, Jessica stayed by the pool. Kale floated near the surface, his massive body still, his eye glowing faintly in the moonlight. "I'm sorry," Jessica whispered. "I tried to tell them you need rest. They don't listen. They only see money." Kale let out a long, low sound, a haunting, mournful call that echoed through the empty arena. Jessica felt it vibrate in her bones. The betrayal came weeks later. Jessica walked into the trainer's office and froze. On the table lay a contract and a set of documents. At the top, stamped in bold letters, "Transfer, Kale, Japanese Aquarium Facility." Her blood turned cold. "You can't be serious," she said. "You're selling him?" Mr. Langston didn't flinch. "They're paying triple what we make here. It's good business." Jessica's fists clenched. "He's not business. He's family." Langston leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Family doesn't pay the bills. Pack your emotions away, Jessica. Trainers are replaceable. Whales are profitable." That night Jessica went to Kale. She knelt by the pool, tears falling into the water. "They want to take you away," she whispered. "Far from here. Far from me." Kale pressed against the side of the tank, his enormous eye locked on her face, as though he understood every word. His body shifted restlessly, waves rippling outward. Jessica reached in, touching his slick skin. "I won't let them. I swear. Kale. I'll fight for you." But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Kale's patience was ending. The betrayal wasn't just Jessica's to feel. It was his too. Years of confinement, years of forced tricks, years of loneliness. The rage in him was growing, black as the depths of the sea. And when it finally erupted, no human chain, no corporate lock, no contract would contain it. The ocean was only a mile away. Jessica could smell it every morning when she arrived at the park, the salty breeze, the sound of gulls in the distance. But for Kale, the ocean might as well have been another universe. He hadn't touched open water in more than 10 years. Each day was the same routine: practice, perform, return to his steel tank. The water was shallow, the walls close. He circled endlessly, his instincts screaming for the vast hunting grounds he remembered from childhood. He had been stolen as a calf, torn from his pod. His mother's cries still haunted him in dreams. Jessica saw the change in him before anyone else did. He ate less. He swam slower. His body carried tension, his jaw clenching whenever another trainer approached. Sometimes he ignored cues, floating motionless instead of leaping. The park dismissed it as laziness. But Jessica knew better. One evening, after the crowds had gone home, Jessica slipped into the water to be with him. She had done it countless times before. Kale had never hurt her. She glided alongside his massive body, pressing her hand against his side. "You're tired, aren't you?" she whispered underwater, bubbles rising past her face. Kale's response was not the playful chirp she was used to. Instead, he released a sharp, guttural sound that vibrated through her chest. A warning. A confession. Jessica surfaced, gasping. She knew what it meant. Kale was reaching a breaking point. The final straw came during a performance on a sweltering summer afternoon. The stadium was packed, the sun beating down. Kale was supposed to leap through a hoop of fire, a dangerous stunt that Jessica had opposed from the start. "Do it," Langston ordered. "The crowd loves drama." Jessica shook her head. "It's reckless. He hates fire, it terrifies him. Do your job, Jessica. Or don't bother coming back tomorrow." Her jaw tightened. Against her will, she gave the signal. Kale swam back, building momentum, his body tensing for the leap. But at the last second, instead of jumping, he stopped. He rose halfway out of the water, glaring at the stands, his mouth open wide in a chilling display. The crowd gasped. Then, suddenly, he slammed his body against the glass wall of the tank. The sound was thunderous. Cracks spidered across the acrylic. Water splashed out in torrents. People screamed. Jessica dove forward, blowing her whistle, trying to calm him. But Kale was beyond whistles, beyond training, beyond control. He struck the wall again, harder this time. Alarms blared. Trainers rushed forward. Langston shouted, "Sedate him! Now!" A dart flew through the air, piercing Kale's thick skin. He thrashed, roaring underwater. The sedative slowed him, but it didn't stop the fury burning inside. Jessica screamed at the staff, "Stop it! You'll kill him!" Langston grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "He's a liability. If he breaks that tank, we're finished." For Jessica, that was the moment the truth crystallized. The park didn't care about Kale. To them, he wasn't family, or even a living being. He was entertainment, a disposable product. And Kale knew it. When his eye locked with Jessica's, she saw something she had never seen before. Not just sadness, not just exhaustion, but vengeance. He wasn't going to be their prisoner forever. That night, Jessica sat in her car long after everyone else had left. She stared at the gates of the park, her hands trembling. "They're going to break him," she whispered to herself. "Or he's going to break them." She didn't know which would happen first, but the balance was shifting. And when Kale finally crossed the line, there would be no going back. The park tried to bury the incident. "Minor equipment malfunction," the press release read. "Our beloved Orca, Kale, remains healthy and safe." But behind closed doors, the story was very different. Langston stormed through meetings, barking orders, demanding stricter control. More chains, more sedation, fewer free swims. Jessica fought him at every turn. "He's not a machine you can tighten bolts on. He's breaking. You keep pushing, he's going to hurt someone." Langston smirked. "Then we'll make an example of him. A show isn't worth running if the star won't perform." Jessica felt her stomach turn. The words weren't just cold, they were a death sentence. The next show was scheduled for a Saturday evening. The stadium was packed with families, children waving plastic Orca toys, parents sipping sodas under the hot lights. Kale floated at the surface of the pool, eerily still. His black dorsal fin cut the water like a blade. Jessica, standing at the platform, tried to catch his eye, but he didn't look at her. His gaze was fixed elsewhere, on the crowd. The show began. Trainers whistled, throwing signals. Kale responded sluggishly at first, swimming in slow circles. The audience clapped politely. Then came the moment of danger. Langston himself appeared with a microphone, grinning for the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, today you will witness the might of the ocean's greatest predator. Watch as Kale leaps higher than ever before, through the flaming hoop." Jessica's breath caught. "No," she muttered. Kale dove deep. For a second, the stadium held its breath, expecting a miracle leap. But when he surged upward, it wasn't toward the hoop. It was toward the trainer nearest the platform. The man didn't even have time to scream. Kale's jaws closed around him in a single, bone-crunching snap. The water erupted red. Chaos exploded in the stands. Children shrieked. Parents scrambled for the exits. Langston dropped his microphone, yelling, "Shut it down! Shut it down!" Other trainers blew whistles, waving frantically, trying to recall Kale like a misbehaving dog. But Kale wasn't listening. For years he had performed tricks, swallowed fish, and danced for applause. Now the performance was over. He thrashed violently, slamming his tail against the water, sending waves crashing over the sides of the tank. He lunged at another trainer, dragging him under before anyone could react. More blood swirled into the chlorinated water. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest. She should have been terrified, but all she felt was clarity. Kale wasn't losing control. He was taking it back. Security rushed in with rifles. Jessica shoved one of them. "Don't you dare!" she screamed. "You fire that gun, you'll hit the crowd. But the men didn't care. Orders were orders. They raised their weapons. Jessica acted before she could think. She sprinted forward, yanking the emergency lever that controlled the tank gates. With a deafening groan, the steel doors slid open, releasing a surge of water. Cale saw it. His massive body turned instantly, charging for freedom. Bullets ricocheted off the water as he dove, disappearing into the tunnel that led to the open sea. Trainers shouted. Sirens wailed. The audience stampeded. And Jessica stood frozen on the platform, drenched and shaking, watching the blood mix with the salt water, watching Cale vanish into the ocean. For the first time in his life since captivity, he was free. But freedom was only the beginning, because Cale wasn't done. Not yet. The news spread like wildfire. By sunrise, every television network in the country was looping shaky footage of the massacre. Children screaming, blood in the pool, Cale dragging bodies beneath the waves. Anchors called it the Blackwater tragedy. Politicians demanded action. Hashtags flooded the internet. Hashtag justice for trainers. Hashtag sea monster on the loose. But in the chaos, one truth remained buried. Jessica had helped him escape. Jessica sat alone in her small apartment that night, drenched in silence. Her clothes still smelled of chlorine and blood. She stared at her trembling hands. She had unlocked the gate. She had set him free. And part of her didn't regret it. Her phone buzzed. It was Langston's number. "You're finished," he hissed when she picked up. "The press wants a villain, and I'm giving them one. You're going down for this. You and your pet monster." He hung up before she could answer. Jessica's chest tightened. She wasn't just a trainer anymore. She was the accused. The traitor. The woman who unleashed a killer. And yet, when she closed her eyes, she didn't see a monster. She saw Cale's eye, dark and full of something she had known since he was a calf: intelligence, rage, pain. This wasn't random violence. It was war. Meanwhile, Cale swam through the open ocean for the first time in over a decade. Every movement was strange, exhilarating. The salt burned his throat in a way chlorine never had. The endless expanse stretched before him, free of walls, free of cages. But freedom didn't erase memory. He remembered the bright lights, the screaming crowds, the needles in his skin, the chains around his fins, the humans who laughed as he bled for their entertainment. And above all, he remembered the man who had ordered it all, Langston. Cale's instincts screamed for survival, but his mind, honed by years of captivity, burned with something deeper: vengeance. He swam along the coast at night, following the vibrations of ships, the sound of engines thrumming across the water. And one by one, boats began to vanish. A fishing trawler was found capsized, nets torn to ribbons. A private yacht washed ashore, its hull punctured with teeth marks. Survivors spoke of a black shadow bigger than a bus that rammed from below. The media went wild. Is the ocean safe anymore? One headline read, "Monster or martyr?" Another asked. For Jessica, the question was personal. She was the only one alive who truly knew Cale. And she knew this wasn't the end. Days later, government officials convened with Langston behind closed doors. "We need to kill it," one said flatly. Langston's eyes gleamed. "Not just kill. Hunt. This is bigger than a rogue animal. It's an opportunity. We capture it again. We own the story. We make billions." Capture. Someone scoffed. After what it's done? Langston leaned forward. "We control the narrative, or the narrative controls us. That thing is my property, and I'll be the man who brings it back." Jessica, listening secretly through a friend at the park, felt her blood run cold. Langston wasn't afraid. He was obsessed, and Cale would know. Somehow, deep in those waters, he would sense the hand that still tried to own him. That night, Jessica drove to the empty shoreline where the ocean stretched endlessly black. She stood barefoot at the edge, waves licking her toes, the wind whipping her hair. "Kale," she whispered into the dark. "If you can hear me, stay away. They're coming for you." But she knew he wouldn't. Kale had tasted freedom. He had tasted blood. And now he was circling closer, waiting for his chance to strike again. Because this wasn't just escape. This was the beginning of the hunt.